Well, good morning. Welcome to NJBIA, and this is our 61st annual Business Outlook Survey. Each year we gather about this time and we talk about how we fared in the year that is finishing, and we look forward to what we can expect and our members can expect going into 2020. So we're going to do an executive overview, and then we're going to drill down in a couple of areas, and of course we'll leave time for some questions at the end. So fair to say, as we enter 2020, that the New Jersey business community continues to be bullish on New Jersey, which is very good. Bullish in some areas, though we'll see where there's concern in others as we proceed forward. Profits and sales in 2019 were strong, as were predicted by members when they did this survey a year ago. Hiring, profit, and sales going into 2020 are going to continue to grow, but at a slower rate. And you're going to see those numbers in just a few minutes and the change that is being predicted. And then small-scale wage increases are anticipated in 2020, which again you'll see is a change in terms of the percentages of raises coming forward. Member companies continue to show a desire to invest. This is important. And we have a trend that continues to be significantly strong in New Jersey, and that is the quality of our workforce and our K-12 education. Consistently, our businesses feel that this is something that New Jersey is head and shoulders above others in, and that's a very important factor for New Jersey, considering that's our future workforce. However, we said that there are concerns and challenges, and we call this the skittish side this year. The outlook for next year is at an 11-year low. And again, you'll see those numbers in a moment. That's for New Jersey. Equally concerning, though, is the overall outlook for the U.S. economy, which is going to slow much more than we've seen over the past few years. We think some of this has to do with the fact that majority of our members believe there is a recession looming in the next 2 years. But even more so in particular to New Jersey is the fact that our state of non-competitiveness continues to go in the wrong direction. And you'll see that numbers and factors where we come in ranking low, we just continue to go in the wrong direction, meaning rather than getting those to be better, they're continuing to decline. And as we say, it's one thing to rank last, it's another thing to be an outlier, but it's really, really challenging when you're an extreme outlier, and you're going to see we continue to go in that direction. And then, of course, we asked our members to talk to us about new mandates that they are dealing with, and in particular minimum wage, and we'll see some impact from that as well. So we'll drill down a little. Let's talk about 2019 and how our members feel they fared this year. Good news is the economy relative to employment and jobs was strong. As you can see, these numbers are consistent with the numbers we saw reported all year long in terms of unemployment rates and jobs increases, and that was the case for our members as well, where employment, for the fact, increased in 2019. Along with that, we can see sales, profits, and purchases continue to grow in 2019 for our member companies. This is very important, of course, because this shows the strength of our companies and, in fact, affords them the opportunity to continue to make investments that they will make into the future. When we look at these numbers, however, and we look at the net outlook, we can see that a trend is starting in a different direction. If you look at the bottom line net outlook under each of these areas, sales, profits, and employment, you'll see that we had 4 years of increases from 2016 through 2019, every year, that net outlook being more optimistic. And for the first time now in about 4 to 5 years, we're starting to trend in the opposite direction with these numbers going south. Okay? And this is where the concern and the bit of the skittishness comes in. I do want to reflect back on 2019, though, for a moment, because as I said, I just showed you 2 slides about strong performance in 2019. And you can see that our member companies, when they were predicting at the end of 18 going into 19, they were predicting a strong year. And you can see where those numbers played out when you see that in 2019, Moore said 62% more sales, 59% more profits, and 39% more employment. And you saw that in the 2 prior slides. So I want to emphasize again, 2019 was a strong year in terms of employment, sales, and profits. Looking ahead, we asked our members to rate the recent performance of both the U.S. economy and the New Jersey economy. And I think you see 2 slightly similar and yet different stories here, in that approximately 80% of our members, when you look at the U.S. economy, suggest that the U.S. economy is from good to excellent. But when you shift to New Jersey, that about 80% shifts from good to fair, again, going in the opposite direction. Now, there are many reasons for this, but when we compare the optimist to the negative on this, that leads us to a net outlook for the state economy. And unfortunately, you can see that this is in the wrong direction. In fact, this is so much in the wrong direction that this is the highest change in net outlook for the negative in the last 9 years. And we should be concerned about that. And if you look even closer, and this is something that I was spending some time on this morning, if you look at the jump over a 2-year period, most recent, you're going from a plus 14% to a 0% in 19, down now to a negative 28%. That's a significant drop, and we only saw another drop like that in a 2-year time if you go back from 2005 to about 2007. I mean, that's a over 40% change in numbers. That's a significant change in attitude on behalf of business and something we should be conscious about. The U.S. economic outlook, we're seeing similar. Again, look at the change from 19 to 20 in terms of the net outlook, going from a 49 to a 7. That's a significant change, again, seeing that we had growth leading up over the last couple of years. A lot of this can have to do with the fact that over half of our members believe that a recession is looming in the next 2 years. As you can see, 56% think that sometime in 20 or 21, recession is going to be coming. Certainly that affects behavior. And how that will affect their behavior, we ask them, how are you going to react to that? And they are preparing. And the ways they're preparing for that is they say they'll look at reducing expenses, they're going to postpone hiring, and postpone raises. And this part about postponing raises shows us in this next chart significantly the shift that's happening, in that while we see in 2019 where we had pay increases, in 2020 coming up next year, the shift is starting to be that the percentage of increase will be less, so more in the 1 to 2.9% than before, where it was above that percentage. And you can see the no raise slightly tweaking up as well. So again, these are just changes that are moving in the wrong direction, that are signs that the business community is preparing for a recession. Equal to that, though, are the challenges in the state of New Jersey that really impact the business outlook on the state specifically. One of these issues is mandates, and one of those mandates is $15 minimum wage. Now here you can see it says 51% of our members say that they will be impacted by the time the increase hits $15 in 2024. I want to spend a minute on that 51%. When we do this data, we ask for comments, and that 49% who are not included in here are companies who already paid in excess of minimum wage. So on this slide, I want you to be very focused on the fact that these are folks who are impacted by minimum wage because they're the folks who pay minimum wage or close to minimum wage, and they're the ones who'll be impacted, okay? The balance of these folks in their comments are saying, I'm not going to be impacted because I already paid wages ahead of that, or they're larger companies. So now, when we look at that population, we ask them, how are you going to be impacted? As we see, they say, first off, 32% may raise prices, 21% reducing staff, reducing benefits behind that, and again, we see automation, and we know we hear about automation all the time. In this survey, these members could pick numerous categories of how they would adjust to minimum wage, and so when you look at those numbers, you may say, you know, how does that add up? It adds up because they could pick numerous categories on how they'd make changes, okay? The challenge in this, two pieces I want to just bring up. Raising prices, of course, 32% raising prices is going to have a challenge on those that were trying to lift their wages in order to afford the things that we're giving them the ability to afford. We say all the time that if we increase someone's wage, but the pizza costs, you know, the $3 more that they're earning, we haven't helped them as much as we think we're helping them. But the area that we're most concerned about is in staffing for the future. And again, in the comments and what our members are telling us is that, number one, they're going to be challenged at hiring people who have no skills or very low skills when they have to pay them more. And number two, this is going to have a dramatic impact on teen wages and teen hiring. And for a tourism destination like New Jersey, we are concerned about that. And that's why NJBIA has been advocating for some relief and a cleanup bill that would provide something like payroll tax credits for hiring youth, in particular in our tourism industries, and that's something we'll continue to push in 2020. We all know the value of that first job for teen workers. I say all the time, I worked at Burger King when I was 16. That's where I learned good customer service, how to show up on time, how to take direction, right? And those are skills that you keep for life. When I talk to our members down near the shore and I hear that they're going to be challenged to hire 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, that is a concern to us. And the other piece of this is that low-skilled workers, that's exactly who we're trying to help by increasing minimum wage. And so we need some strategies around that because those are the folks who are going to be left out at the end when the hiring slows down. So then we go a little more global, and we always ask each year, what are the top challenges as a business that you feel you're facing in the state of New Jersey that have impact on your ability to do business? And I want to just remind us that for 59 years, health insurance costs were number one. And again, this is the 61st year. Okay, consistently over the years of this survey, health insurance costs became number one. For the past 2 years, property taxes and cost of doing business have risen to number one and number two. Again, that's a sign. New Jersey is not affordable. And before, when businesses said healthcare insurance and that cost is more challenging to me, that means that they weren't paying as much attention to property taxes and cost of doing business. These new mandates and new taxes and new fees clearly are putting these two issues at the top of their concerns, and that addresses affordability and our lack of competitiveness here in the state of New Jersey. We see this playing out even more when we ask our members to compare New Jersey's performance to other states across a myriad of issues. And the sad part of this chart is I really wish we could see more blue up there, because unfortunately the red is taking over, and the red are the areas where we just can't compete with other states. And that's where our members believe that we are faring less well than those other states in these areas. Now, the super highlight on this is item number one, quality of public schools, and I said this earlier. Consistently, year over year, New Jersey ranks number one or number two or number three. Right now, we are number one in K-12 education, but that comes at an extremely hefty cost. And you're seeing that playing out as you go further down with all the red in the areas of taxes and fees, cost of doing business, controlling energy, property tax. These are all the issues that impact our ability here in the state of New Jersey to be affordable and regionally competitive. And when you see all this red, this should be a sign to us that surely here red is a red flag. And this is why NJBIA continues to call for a reform agenda and getting our spending under control, because this is what's crushing us as a state. So how does that play into expansion? We have challenges here. Businesses feeling the weight of it. How are they feeling about expanding or considering New Jersey as a place to expand? And unfortunately, we see that, again, 38% think that New Jersey is a poor place to consider expansion, and 41% think it only fair. A very small majority think New Jersey is a good place to consider expanding. So let's look at the issues of expansion a little more. Why is that? Again, regulatory obstacles, and embedded in regulatory obstacles are increased mandates and costs on business. The business community does not feel that New Jersey is doing a good job in reversing the tide of regulatory mandates that are hurting their ability to do business and be successful. In addition to that, when we look at the fact of who might be expanding, right, we look at this one chart here, and if you were planning to expand, would you open in another location other than New Jersey? First of all, we're playing out that there's no expansion when we look down at the consistent 14% down here. But when we look along here, I'm sorry, I had them backward. On the yes to expand is only 14%. The no plans to expand, okay, continues to grow. And now, where they're expanding in other states, 30% of the small amount they're going to expand are going to do it in another state. Driving down into the comments, where are they going? And this is consistent with the outmigration patterns that BIA has been reporting on for the last 5 years. For business, the number one state they're looking to expand, if they are expanding, is Pennsylvania, followed behind by states like North Carolina, Delaware, and Florida. If we move to the other side of the chart, we're now talking about residents and their domicile when they consider retirement. Again, NJBIA has studied outmigration for the last 5 years. We update our numbers every year. Thank you, Nikki, who's in the room today, our great director of research. And unfortunately, the trend is consistent. When we ask, will you make New Jersey your domicile in retirement, we continue to see an overwhelming amount say no. Now, the good news here is we've seen some trends in terms of small numbers changing. We attribute that in the last 2 years to the elimination of estate tax in the state of New Jersey and the increase in the threshold on retirement income, which makes New Jersey, or should make New Jersey, more affordable for seniors. Okay? So these slight upticks are positive to us because, again, BIA advocated on that policy. We were told at the time that if we could have those reforms, people would consider staying. And while it doesn't look like a lot, we will take this, okay? Because this is a move in the right direction. Seniors need relief like that. We need to continue to think about how do we make New Jersey more affordable for those who are considering retirement. And the reason for that is obvious, but I'm going to state it anyway. Today's retiree is different than years ago. Today's retiree is very active. They spend a lot of money. They should be spending it in the state where they accrued that affluence and not take their retirement funds to another state and spend it on someone else's economy. When we lose the benefit of that money here in the state of New Jersey, that affects our business and our overall economy. Investments. We said earlier that New Jersey businesses are going to continue to invest in themselves. In particular, they're going to improve productivity. And again, we hear this all the time, increasing technology and making their companies more productive. When they make their companies more productive, they appreciate better bottom line. The whole idea of getting leaner and meaner, and then your revenue goes right back to your bottom line. And they're using their revenue to put back in themselves, and that's a very, very good indicator for us. They're going to continue to do that over the next 12 months, as this slide shows, and it shows just the ranges of where they will be making those increases. Okay. So then we hit some social issues. Marijuana legalization. We know now that we're not going to see a bill in lame duck for the legalization of marijuana. However, we know that it is moving toward being on the ballot for next year. So first question to our members is, do you think that the legalization of marijuana will be good for our economy? As you can see, 56% say no. This is consistent to last year's numbers, which was the first year we asked the question. But more important in this is what concerns our employers have about the potential legalization of recreational marijuana in New Jersey. And it's no surprise that number one is safety in the workplace. Overwhelmingly, safety in the workplace is the number one concern when it comes to recreational marijuana. This is why NJBIA advocated for an amendment to the pending bills to ensure that drug testing in the workplace continues to recognize zero tolerance policies for anyone who's under the influence in the workplace. Okay? And then you see productivity of workforce, chronic absenteeism. These are typical issues consistent with last year that obviously affect the productivity of a workforce, and that's where our members' concerns are relative to marijuana legalization. You know that NJBIA does a lot of work in the area of workforce development. It's significantly important that we keep an eye on our pipeline of talent. As we say every day, it's one thing that we can help to create new jobs in the state of New Jersey, but if we don't have a talent pipeline to fill those jobs, we haven't finished our job as an association on behalf of our members. So we asked some questions around labor availability. As you can see on these slides, and this is the story is a good story to tell because it's consistent in that the higher up you go in the technical expertise that you need, the more difficult it is for our members to locate that talent here in the state of New Jersey. When I said it's a good story to tell, I mean it's an easy story to tell. That's not a good story because we need to build this pipeline for sure, okay? Technical middle skilled jobs, this is where we say that unfortunately we've failed a couple of generations here in the state of New Jersey. We need to be talking about career pathways, on and off ramps and credentials, because we know that in this space, in the middle skilled area, that we know employees can have a job where they can live, work, and raise a family in the state of New Jersey, which helps with the affordability factor. This is all about going back to training students for those technical middle skilled jobs, such as the trades. And we haven't done that in a couple decades here, and it's time for us to get a focus back on that, okay? When we look at this next row down here of labor availability, here we were asking more about employability skills. And most important, I want to focus on for a minute is critical thinking, because we talk about how we educate students for the future workforce and the importance of educating on competencies that are transferable because of the dynamic change of the workforce for the future. You know, jobs change every day, and so you need a certain skill set and competencies that affords you to move from one type of job to another. And the types of skills like critical thinking are that type of employability skill that consistently is lacking and something that we continue to advocate that we need K-12 and beyond. We need to go back and talk about how do we better build critical thinking skills in our students. Along with this are other things like communication, all right? But when you have these types of competencies that are more horizontal, that you can transfer from job to job to job, as opposed to just a vertical technical skill, these are the types of competencies we need to train for the future. And this is where BIA's efforts are working with our businesses and our academic institutions to help to inform the curricula to lead to these types of competencies for the future. And this brings us to our partnership between business and academia. And the good news here is that we continue to see an increase in experiential learning, which is something that BIA works tirelessly with our businesses and our academic partners to advance. We know that the more opportunities for experiential learning that young workers can have, the more visibility they have to jobs of the future, the more training they get on the job, and then the more prepared they are to enter the workforce as a ready employee. In-demand skills is where we need to place our focus, because today what we have is a workforce that comes out and they need time in their job to skill up. We're trying to make them be ready for in-demand jobs by building their skill set early. Experiential learning provides that. So good news, New Jersey businesses continue to increase providing paid internships and other experiential learning opportunities. We have a long way to go here, okay? Good news is we're working on it every day with our workforce development opportunities. So in conclusion, New Jersey business is still bullish, however, showing much caution for 2020. We absolutely need to hit the pause button on added mandates and costs to doing business. This plays out time and time again here. We just need to give businesses the opportunity to catch their breath, to figure out how they're going to absorb these increased costs from all the new mandates that have been placed on them for the next 2 years, because they plan on a cycle. They look 2-3 years ahead. They need to know what their expenses are going to be for the next few years and not each year have another mandate thrown on them that's going to upset their cycle. We need to improve the business climate. That can't be any more stronger a statement than now. And again, this is why we continue to advocate for a reform agenda here in the state of New Jersey. We are an outlier when it comes to the issues and challenges facing New Jersey business in terms of costs of doing business and taxes. And it's time that we step back and get those costs and taxes under control.